February 17, 1862, Mimi died in Pierpont's arms.
Here's an extraordinary outpouring of somebody trying to control life in some way. It was a terrible loss for him, and he failed. But he knew what he was getting into, oddly enough. He was daring, and almost he was daring death in some sort of dramatic way, and attempting to control it.
The ordered, controlled life that Pierpont had made for himself was turned upside down, imbued with a dark chaos. He returned to New York a changed man.
The loss was so powerful that, in a way, it forced him to keep his genuinely emotional nature under tight control.
Pierpont immersed himself in his business. It helped him deal with the loss of Mimi. He continued to work with his father, directing European investments into American industry. Pierpont was looking for a larger platform, but for now, attending to his father's wishes kept him busy and helped him overcome his grief. However, not all his time was taken up with his new business ventures. He found distraction and entertainment in his social activities around town. Pierpont also remembered the comfort that the Episcopal Church had offered when he attended Mass with his grandfather Morgan. He joined St. George's Church and immersed himself in its activities. As he continued to grieve for Mimi, the church provided a type of redemption that Pierpont didn't expect. It was there that he met the young, beautiful Fanny Tracy. The daughter of a prominent attorney, she was at first put off by Pierpont's gruff demeanor, but soon she warmed to his affections. After a year-long courtship, Pierpont and Fanny were married at St. George's Church on May 31st, 1865. In their first year together, Fanny gave birth to a daughter. They named her Louisa. Over the next several years, Fanny gave Pierpont a son and 2 more daughters. Pierpont's prospects were bright. At 33 years of age, he had a beautiful family, a yacht, 2 homes, and was earning more than $75,000 a year, a huge amount in a time when $2,000 was a comfortable living. He even thought of retiring, but once again his father intervened. To change Pierpont's mind, Junius suggested a partnership with the powerful banker Anthony Drexel. Under Pierpont's leadership, the new company quickly became a powerhouse in international finance. Pierpont's power grew rapidly, and with it, his reputation as a man who could influence events. With all thoughts of retirement completely out of his head, Pierpont was determined to make his mark. In 1879, he got his chance. He was approached by William H. Vanderbilt, heir to the Vanderbilt fortune. Vanderbilt wanted to sell 250,000 shares of stock in the New York Central Railway. The deal was tricky. Such a vast sum was involved that chaos in the market was almost guaranteed. Well, Pierpont accepted the challenge and with a combination of stealth, cunning, and brilliance, pulled off the near impossible feat. He successfully sold all of Vanderbilt's shares without shaking the market. For Pierpont, the Vanderbilt deal was a turning point. In return for his services, he had demanded a seat on the New York Central's board of directors. It was a brilliant power play and gave Pierpont financial control over the railway. It was a tactic to gain control that Pierpont would use often.
It was said that he would serve on the board of all of the companies that he was interested in, but that the chairman of the board was always wherever J.P. Morgan sat.
The financial world began to take serious notice of Pierpont Morgan. He was fast becoming Wall Street's darling deal maker, and his reputation for business savvy was matched only by his reputation for getting what he wanted.
Physically, Morgan was an overwhelming presence. He had piercing black eyes that could seem to look through people and read their minds. He had his enormous disfigured, discolored nose that intimidated people, and he knew it.
Morgan was called upon to use his power and influence to clean up another financial mess. Two of the largest railroads in America were locked in a destructive financial battle. They had built lines next to each other in their attempts to compete. But competition had created chaos. Money was wasted on unproductive and unprofitable new tracks. Collapse of one or both of these railroads was imminent and would spell disaster for investors, many of whom were represented by Junius and Pierpont Morgan. Pierpont was called in to help.
As far as the British investors were concerned, the railroads were the Wild West, wild, woolly, and lawless, and they felt that Pierpont Morgan was the sheriff who would ride in and clean it up.
Pierpont's strategy was a stroke of genius that revealed his determination to have things his way. His solution was to call a meeting of railroad owners aboard his yacht. Just a leisurely boat ride along the Hudson to discuss a possible agreement. Once aboard, Morgan let the men know that he expected a compromise. Time passed. The boat sailed up and down the Hudson River. It was soon apparent that Morgan would not let the railroad owners off the boat until they came to an agreement.
Morgan was a very flamboyant and almost operatic figure, and like all great actors, he liked to have great stage sets for his big set pieces. He found that very often, in order to get a business deal, it helped to isolate people and also to set a deadline.
Morgan's plan worked. The railway owners agreed to stay out of each other's territory. Morgan's outrageous tactics earned the agreement a special name. It became known as the Corsair Pact. By the end of the 19th century, Pierpont Morgan had become a tycoon in his own right. He was no longer living in the shadow of his father. But once again, just as he was enjoying his success, a series of personal tragedies struck. In the winter of 1884, Pierpont's mother, Juliet, died in London. Then in April of 1889, Pierpont took Fanny and their children to visit his father in the south of France. It was the last time they would see Junius alive. In April of 1890, Junius Morgan was killed in a carriage accident. The death of his father signaled a change in Pierpont Morgan's own life. Junius's estate was worth over $14 million, and Pierpont received the lion's share.
I think that Pierpont Morgan's father's death did have a profound effect upon him. I think that effect was a liberating one. When his father died in 1890, it set Pierpont Morgan free.
One of the first things Morgan did with his large inheritance was to build a bigger, more elaborate yacht. This one measured over 241 feet, one of the largest pleasure vessels afloat. When somebody asked Morgan how much it cost to keep such a large yacht, he answered, "If you have to ask, you can't afford it." Between the yachting ventures and the business deals, Morgan's family saw little of him. While he may have spent a lot of time away from home, Morgan still had a profound effect on his children. His only son, Jack, was groomed as the heir apparent. After graduating from Harvard in 1889, he began work as an apprentice on Wall Street. Jack, like Pierpont, followed his father into the family business. And business was booming. Morgan's bank acquired more companies, placing Morgan and his partners on boards of directors all over the country. But the American economy was fragile, and in 1893, the stock market crashed. The nation was thrown into a devastating depression. More than 100 railroads declared bankruptcy, causing a domino effect that threatened other businesses and promised complete collapse of the economy. Once again, powerful men called upon Pierpont Morgan to bail them out. Morgan reorganized the railroads by streamlining operations and was quickly able to reverse the downward spiral. But his help came at a price.